Welcome to If Only You Knew, where each week we take a deep dive into the careers and experiences of people from different backgrounds, cultures, countries, and ages to discuss pivotal moments in their lives and the lessons they have learnt along the way.
If they told people the truth, they wouldn't last very long.
Whether you're a school student in an established career, mapping your academic pathway, searching for the perfect career, looking to change careers, or just plain curious, then this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Christy McCormack, and I want to ask you, what would you do differently if only you knew? With me today is Phoebe Haywood. Phoebe is the Principal Policy Officer at Queensland College of Teachers. Phoebe is also a registered teacher and holds an undergraduate qualification in Education Arts, a Masters of Business Administration, and last year Phoebe commenced a Bachelor of Laws. Welcome, Phoebe, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Christy. It's a pleasure and an honour to be here.
Now, no one can deny that COVID-19 has changed the world, but for me, someone who is quite shy and not exactly techie, it's allowed me to connect virtually with people I may not have ever met. And that's exactly how Phoebe and I met, through a virtual boardroom lunch where our fellow alumni came together to discuss leadership during periods of uncertainty. Now, no one actually ate at the boardroom lunch, but the discussion was fantastic and I learned a lot. So after this, I reached out to Phoebe as I was really interested in learning more about the education sector from someone who has a deep understanding of all facets of education. And lucky for me and our listeners, Phoebe agreed to chat with me. So Phoebe, I wanted to start with your personal education story. Did you always want to become a teacher?
I love this question. Yes and no. I think as a young child, I thought I did. I have these vague memories of trying to teach my younger sister things with the little kiddie chalkboard. Actually, all through most of primary school, I was going to be a surgeon. I have these great memories of pulling off the first aid manuals from the bookshelf and spending days just trawling through them. And then I was going to be an archaeologist and become an Egyptologist, I think. And then when things got a bit more realistic in year 11 and 12, I was sort of, teachers around me were probably the adults that I really, aside from my parents, admired most in my life. And so they were great role models. And I guess I just wanted to be like them. So I was juggling between teaching and social work, and teaching was the kind of job that I could continue to study the subjects that I was really passionate about, and that's history and geography. And so that's how I ended up as a teacher.
Now, how supportive was your school of your ambitions to become a teacher?
They were wonderful. So I'm not sure if all schools have this, but we had a really great careers counsellor, and she was really up to date with what all the universities were doing. She would go to careers fairs all the time and have heaps and heaps of different brochures and contacts of people that we could speak to. So you could book in a time whenever, and she'd be able to provide that excellent support. But yeah, the school was really supportive of people across the board, no matter whether or not they wanted to be a doctor or a gardener, and you could tailor your subject and work towards whatever it was that you wanted to be. We really weren't limited in any regard.
So do you think them being sort of proactive with regards to attending career fairs and things like that they were able to then tailor the subjects that you needed to be able to become like a doctor or a gardener if you wanted to, and the different...
Yeah, I think so. And through that process of when you're in year 10, I think, I'm not sure if that's still the same case, but when you're in year 10 and you get to choose your senior subjects, and I do recall there was a lot of information sessions and opportunities to really have a think about where you wanted to go. And I guess we were also encouraged to not feel daunted by the fact that we were leaving school, but to remember that it didn't really matter what subjects you did at the end of the day. And you could, once you get into uni, you can change your path. And so we were really encouraged to not narrow ourselves too much and to try and have a good spread of things that we were interested in. And I guess that's the approach that I really took. So I did a spread of subjects that was, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to be, and if I knew what I wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't know if that's what I wanted to do for my whole life. So I played it safe, did a mixture of humanities, science, and maths and English, and it's paid off. But yeah, the school was great. The school was really good with that. Lots of resources was, I guess, put into making us feel I guess, safe and supported through that transition to year 12 and then subsequently to uni or whatever path that people took. Yeah.
So what would your advice be to high school students considering moving into a teaching career?
Oh, do it. It's great. I think, a teaching career is a wonderful career. Teaching is, and I don't think this is probably widely spoken about enough, but teaching is really intellectually challenging. It's one of those jobs that brings together not only your subject knowledge, but also your knowledge of, the brain, psychology, learning, theories of learning, and the dynamics in the classroom is something that you've got to have a hold on. And at the end, and you also have to be an actor too, in many ways. And you've got to be able to engage young minds and a diversity of minds in the one room and keep them engaged and make sure that they're learning. And that is, that's really, really hard. And I don't think we give teachers enough credit for that huge difficulty that task brings. But that's also really exciting. I recall just feeling that sense of adrenaline and excitement every day as a teacher. And on top of that, it's just fun. School's fun. So, and teaching is also one of those jobs that you can travel with. You can go wherever you want, and then you can do other things. You can move up within the school structures, or you can go on and move into government and those sorts of things. So, it's I think it's a good career choice for anybody. Yeah.
So were you naturally good at the subjects at school?
No, I think I was better at the humanities subjects than I was, say, maths and science, and I enjoyed them much more. It was just an interest area of mine. But I worked really, really hard in school. I was one of the kids that had to work really hard to get the good grades. But I think from learning how to work really hard from probably year 10, 11 and 12 was when I really knuckled down. That really paid off in uni subsequently because I kind of knew how to work and how to push myself.
So speaking about university, how did you decide on which university that you wanted to attend?
To be honest, I didn't really get what university was when I was in high school. I remember lots of stressed out conversations with my mum and dad at 11 and 12 going through the university books, the guidebooks or course books, whatever they were, and not really understanding the difference between a degree and a diploma and a certificate and a master's and what all those words meant. It was like a whole new language for me. But at the end of the day, it was pretty shameful. I chose UQ, probably because of the sandstone, actually. It was a beautiful place to be. But I also had my teacher at the time, my geography history teacher, one of the teachers in the humanities department was a big UQ fan, and he sort of said to me, if you want to do geography, go to UQ, because my plan was to stay in Brisbane as well. So I sort of had only a few options.
So you've done quite a lot of study and you've completed your undergraduate at UQ, as you said, and then you went on to do your master's at a different university. And now the third degree that you're completing is with a completely different university. So why have you chosen the universities that you have? And did you do this intentionally to gain sort of different experiences with different institutions, or were they just the best option for the course that you had chosen to study?
Yeah, I think I chose UQ when I first finished school, because of the sandstone and because it was sort of, I think I just had my heart set on UQ for whatever reasons. Maybe the marketing was really fantastic and it got to me. But at the end of the day, that really paid off because I really enjoyed, UQ was great for having all those, and I UQ and Griffith and QUT and so on. All universities are wonderful, this too, but it was good for that first initial university experience and going to tutorials, spending my days there in the Great Court, lounging around, drinking coffees, and obviously doing a lot of study as well. But it was good for that period in my life, I think, because it was a real social scene. And when you do your undergrad, there's a lot of socialising involved. So that suited that stage of my life. But later on, when I began teaching and I started the master's degree, I knew that it was just going to be too much work to be physically going into university all the time and doing nights. And that was a long drive too from where I was living. So I decided that I needed some flexibility, and Griffith was able to offer that with their MBA program. As you know, they have the intense, 6-week course, sort of intensified option where you can do one course at a time, and each course is for 6 weeks. And that's mostly online. So that was really useful for when I was working full time and I just couldn't be driving into uni all the time, and I could shape my schedule around school. And I also chose Griffith because I ended up going overseas, and Griffith was fine with me doing that. And they said, yeah, go for it. 7-hour time difference, doesn't matter. We're cool with that. So that worked really, really well. And today my life is different again. And I wanted to combine going into university and doing face-to-face classes and lectures. But I wanted the flexibility that if there was a period in my life that was a bit more busy because of work, I could switch to online. And QUT has been really good for that. And they have the graduate entry law degree. So that helped me.
So would your advice be to people entering into university and doing that selection process to try and find a university that will fit in with their lifestyle at the time?
Definitely. Yeah, I think realistically about your particular circumstances and what you can realistically fit into your life, and find the university that's going to suit you more in that period in your life. And I think the unis are great. I think all of the universities have been wonderful and flexible, and so you've just got to find what's right for you. And also just logistics, distance, they're all wonderful. So I think there's no right or wrong. Yeah.
And there's certainly a lot of options nowadays with a lot of universities offering online. So yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Just really good. Really, really good.
Now, you said you pretty much love learning. Do you see education as a stepping stone for what you want to do, or do you just love learning and do you think it's a combination of those things?
That's hard. I think it's probably a combination of those things. I do love learning, but I also I think it's more the challenge, actually. And I like to be busy. I like to be juggling lots of different things. So I think I'm not sure what I'll do when I finish this degree. I might have to enroll in another one. I'm kidding. This will be the last one. But yeah, I do. It's definitely a combination of the two. I think often there's the idea that you have to have a clear path about where you're going when you enroll in a degree. But I think there's also something to be said for not having any idea at all. And in most cases, I've not had any idea, but it's all worked out. And I've found that I've been able to use the skills that I've learnt through all the different experiences that I've had and all the different subjects and courses that I've done. It's all paid off, and sometimes in ways that you just never expect. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing because not everybody has that clear path through school and through education. So to be able to have the options to change and to see it as, a learning process, not necessarily just a clear line into a career.
Definitely. That's why things like, arts degrees are wonderful, because it's such a generalist degree, but you learn some really excellent skills in terms of critical thinking and your ability to analyze problems. And that's just, the value of that can't be underestimated, I think, in the workforce today.
Absolutely. Now, you actually left university and became a history and a geography teacher at quite a prestigious school. Now, did you leave university and start teaching straight away?
The plan wasn't to do that. I think I left university and had sort of a young person crisis and decided that I didn't want to leave university. So I was all ready to do I tag an honours onto the end of my degree. But a job was going at this school and I applied, and it was just a short contract, but things changed, people shuffled around, and I was extended. And so it was right place at the right time. It was definitely one of those situations for me.
So did you find it hard to get a job straight out of university?
No, I did apply for a few jobs. Oh, it's so long ago now. Yeah, I did apply for quite a few jobs from memory. In teaching, we always need teachers, and people are always moving around and shuffling. So I found it, as I said, I was really in the right place in the right time. But I think had that not happened, I would have been okay. And I think also, I was just going to say that in education, because people are obviously away quite often, and so you can sign up to do what's called supply teaching, and through that, you can get short-term contracts, and that kind of builds up, and so that was going to be the option that I was going to take should everything fall apart.
So what year levels did you teach?
8 to 12, a mixture, not all of them. It was sort of a couple of year 8 classes, a couple of year 10 classes, and year 12 classes, 11 and 12, sorry. Yeah, so a whole range, which made it exciting and difficult.
So was it strange being the teacher and not the student, especially when you were teaching students that, in year 12, they're not that much younger than you?
Oh, yeah. It was really hard, actually, in the first few years. And to make that dynamic even worse, I actually returned to the school that I went to. I was one of those people. So, on top of that total imposter syndrome that you get as a young professional, I was, the year 12 students were closer to my age than my colleagues were. So that was really interesting, and something that I think it took me a while to get a hold of. The teachers, for that reason, I think, really took care of me. And there's a real sense of collegiality in schools, whereby young teachers quite often are really supported and taken care of. And I was lucky enough to have some really great mentors in the first couple of years of my job there. And so those people were really able to help me get a hold on things and work out what I was doing. And I was fortunate in that all of the classes that I had were really beautiful. And so I think they were supportive as well in their own way. They were great.
That's fantastic, because that was, going to be one of my questions, is how supportive were the other teachers? Because I think it would be very hard being a young person, when a lot of teachers have many, many years of experience, and
definitely,
syndrome is very, very real.
Yeah. And the thing with teaching is that it's one of the only professions where in the first year or so out, you have the same level of responsibility as your colleagues who have many more years of experience. And so it's a huge amount of pressure. And so that I did find challenging. But yeah, it's those support systems around you that you've just got to ask for help. And I learned to ask for help quite quickly, and I'm glad I did.
Definitely. How did you find the parents, though? Were they nightmares, or some of them?
Not really, actually. You do hear about that sort of in the media, but no, the parents were pretty good, actually. I found at the school that I was at, parents were really invested in their children's education. Not so much that I experienced much helicopter parenting or anything like that, but just people who were responsive to me when I expressed concerns or had to send them an email about things. People were really responsive. So yeah, I really did hit the lottery. So
that's good.
It's a really great community, great school community. Yeah,
fantastic. So you then went on and spent almost a year teaching at an academy for girls in Doha, Qatar. Now, that's quite a move. And, we spoke earlier, that was, they're 7 hours sort of behind.
Yeah.
But what made you decide to pack up and become a teacher on pretty much the other side of the world?
I don't actually know. I'm pretty, I do things like this in life. I was pretty okay here in Brisbane. I was pretty fine, but I knew that I did want to go and work overseas eventually. And I think what happened was that I had put my name down for one of those agencies that link up teachers with international schools, and there was an email with some job ads going, and I just clicked on one just out of interest. I don't think I even knew where Qatar was. And I had a look and thought, oh yeah, I might apply for that, not thinking anything would come of it. And pretty much in the same week, I had a job interview and was given the job. And so I had to think pretty fast about how to wrap my life up in Brisbane and make that move.
So do you think that having to do it so quickly was sort of good for you? So you really got to get to think about it? It was just pack up, go?
Yeah. That's right. That's how I have to do these sorts of big things in my life. I've noticed this, is that I need to not think and just do it and deal with the consequences later. I don't know if that's the best way to go through life, but it certainly it's happened a few times now. I think because it was such a big move and because it was so strange and scary, and I didn't know anybody who'd done anything like that. Nobody in my circle a circle of friends had done it. And so I really just couldn't think about it. I had to just deal with it. So yeah, quit my job and away we went.
Wow. And what did your family say?
They were pretty annoyed. Yeah. Yeah, I think they were a bit shocked. But they came around to the idea once they did some research about the country and about the school, and the initial shock wore off, and then they sort of thought it might be fun to go on a holiday there. So that's, yeah,
Bonus for them.
had to sell it to them. Yeah.
Now, how
Yeah.
difficult was it to adjust to the way of life over there?
In some ways, really, really hard because Qatar is a very, very different country, culture, obviously, to Australia. It's a really big expat community living in Doha. And it's really quite small, and it's a crazy place where the whole city has sort of been built up only in the last few decades, really. So it's a really interesting place. But obviously, moving into sort of a Muslim culture and everybody speaking Arabic around you, that was really challenging. And just the way things work is really, really different to here in Australia. But I was very fortunate in that because there is such a great expat community there, there was a lot of people from the UK, actually. And I had a really great mate who was from Kansas. And so she was teaching the subjects that I was teaching, and she lived in the apartment building next to mine. So I had that support system there in terms of people that I could turn to. But yeah, it was really hard, and we all found it really hard. And so that brought us all closer together. So they became my new family over there.
And how different's their education system to Australia's?
Pretty different. In my school, we were teaching the UK curriculum, the international GCSE, and so that was in some respects quite similar to what we would do back here in Australia. I was teaching geography only, and so that element of it was really okay. The other side, the school that I was working at was quite religious too, so we would break for prayer a couple of times in the school day, and the kids also had Arabic classes, and so that was the school, I guess, was sort of split between the Qatari system and the UK system, and so we would all work together through that. Yeah.
So Australia is quite a multicultural society, and you spoke just briefly about the expat community over there. But Qatar's on another level with almost 90% of the population being foreign workers. So where you taught at the academy, did you see that diversity?
Not so much in the academy itself. There was a really large Qatari population of students at the school. It was all girls' school. Outside, though, there was huge diversity in the community. There was huge numbers of Pakistani workers in particular, and particularly in the area that I lived. A lot of people from Egypt and so on. But then there was also a huge population of Europeans and people from the UK, mostly associated with the airlines. And so that community sort of lived in the sort of the city area, the Pearl region of Doha, and so yeah, it was really interesting. It was sort of a big melting pot of cultures, and then every now and then we'd get a cruise ship in, and you'd have this massive population of people from the cruise ship come and just completely take over the marketplace, which was sort of the hub that you would go on a Friday and Saturday night. Yeah, so it was really interesting. It was really fun, actually. Yeah.
So do you think it was a bit of a life-changing experience being able to go over there and,
Oh,
work
definitely.
and live in a different culture?
Yeah, because you've got to work and live in a different culture, and you've got to take care of yourself. And while I'd lived out of home for quite some time before that, you've got nobody, and so things are very different in terms of employment law and that sort of thing over there as well. And so those sorts of things that for us, we're very fortunate here in Australia, but when you have to go and live in it, it's really quite shocking sometimes. And to go and just deal with that on your own, I think is important. But yeah, it was really hard and lonely in sometimes, but also really, really fun. So very life-changing. I think it forced me to grow up. Yeah.
And do you think it made you a better teacher?
Yes, it made me much more patient, I think, because obviously English was the second language for most of my students. And so I was in awe of them being able to manage. They'd jump from an Arabic class to my class, but they did it quite beautifully. So I think it made me a better teacher in terms of in that regard, but also just being able to cross cultures. I don't think I'd realized how much of a gap there would be between us in terms of our our lives were just so different. And so, they would ask me all about Australia, and just it was really crazy for a lot of them. But it was, it made me much more patient and much more flexible, I think, in the way that I taught, because I think I had my recipe for success, I guess, in Australia, and that had to be thrown out the window when I moved to a different place.
So overall, what do you think the biggest challenge that you faced while you were there was?
Probably just adjusting to the new way of life, really, and adjusting to things like, sometimes the air conditioner would break and it's 40 degrees, and those sorts of really, simple, this is sort of a first world problem kind of thing. But there was that, and I think just the loneliness and the isolation sometimes was really quite hard, because sometimes all my friends would go away. They would go home for Christmas, for instance, but Australia is so far that I didn't do that. So that was quite challenging, and you'd have to find ways to occupy yourself. And Doha is a very small place, and so there's only so many times you can go to the art museum or go to the market, and so that was hard. But I found, and maybe that's why I like to study so much, is that I found the MBA study while I was there was a great distraction. So when I was feeling homesick or anything like that, I would just invest my time in uni. I'm not sure if that's healthy or not, but that's what I ended up doing. I'll just do another subject. This will be fine.
Yeah. So you were lucky enough to be able to complete your MBA during a time when you lived both in Australia and overseas. So obviously, being able to throw yourself into study as a bit of a distraction was good for you. But studying while in a new job in a different country must have been really tough. So how did you sort of balance all of that?
Do you know, I think it was actually good. I think it actually helped, because that was the one thing, the one continuity that I had both in Australia and then in Qatar. So it was kind of like a link to home, because I couldn't get anything to work, like the ABC and that sort of thing. I didn't know how to set up a VPN. I'm a bit technologically challenged. So I didn't really have that connection home. And so study was really good for that, to, be able to talk to people through the discussion boards and that sort of thing. But then with the new job, it was actually really good, because school over there goes from, I think it was 7 until 2 o'clock. So typically, I think they would have sort of a morning tea at school, but then they'd go home and have a big lunch. And so the timing of the day is kind of shifted forwards. And so I had these big afternoons of empty free time that I wouldn't have known what to do with myself had I not had the study. So it was actually really easy to manage it all. Yeah. And it got much more hard when I got home. Yeah.
How did you find the online learning process?
Oh, great. Yeah, it was really good, because I could just tune in whenever. And so that was helpful, because I obviously wasn't able to make the lectures when they were broadcast live. So I was able to just watch the recording, and it was really flexible. So, yeah.
So being 7 hours behind, were you able to get out of any of those dreaded group assessments?
Do you know, I actually can't remember. I think I did. I'm not sure if I tailored my subjects deliberately to avoid group assignments, or if I just pushed all of the group assignment ones to the end of the degree when I was back in Australia. I did, however, I participated in the Aspen Business Case Challenge, And
Wow.
that's like a 48-hour period, and it's really intense. You work in a small team, and you've got to get it done. And obviously my teammates were back in Australia, and so we had that 7-hour time difference. And so that was challenging and quite interesting. But that was really the only time that it made a difference, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a note to all universities, no one actually likes group assessments apart from really lazy students that want to jump on the bandwagon with, the smart kids and try to get their grades up.
I just finished one actually, and I think we felt really good about it because we'd, done the whole contract doing that and everything, and it just seemed to go forever. But yeah, I guess they're good for building teamwork and all that, which you do need in the workforce, but golly, they are hard.
They are hard. Now, 3 years ago, you moved away from face-to-face teaching and into education policy. Now, was this a strategic decision to further your career, or were you just sick of the kids?
I don't think I was sick of the kids. I think I wanted to try something different. I think through going overseas and through doing the MBA, I got a bigger idea about how things worked, really, and how organizations work, and the systems that our society really relies on. And I think I wanted to do something that was out of the classroom, but I still really wanted to be involved in education. And so I, made the leap, applied for a job, and ended up working in policy, which has been really diverse and really interesting.
So was it a hard decision to make?
No, because I say no because I had returned to Australia and didn't actually have a teaching job. So I was teaching for a short period at a school in Brisbane here, another girls' school, and that was a short-term contract, and that was finishing up, and I needed something for the new year. And I think I'd done a lot of growing up and learning in Qatar, and so I wanted to try something totally different. And so, was applying for a whole range of things, and this is the one that came through.
So do you see yourself going back to face-to-face teaching anytime soon?
I'm not sure now that I'm doing law, but I do miss it. When I'm talking, I've got a lot of friends who are teachers. When I talk to them and I hear about their funny stories or what they're working on, I do get a little bit envious and feeling like I'm missing out. And I do miss that busyness of the school day and that enjoyment that you get. And it's such a fulfilling role, particularly when you see that look on a kid's face and they've got something that they've really been struggling with. I think I do miss that aspect of it. So yeah, we'll see.
So you now spend your days looking at regulatory governance, initial teacher education, and education policy. So how different is your day to when you were a teacher?
It's obviously super different, because as a teacher, your day is really scheduled with a timetable. And that's another thing I miss about teaching is that I'm a real timetable person. No, my day is in an office, obviously, and working with a team of all of them are actually ex-teachers as well.
Oh.
And our whole team is teachers. And I work on a diversity of different things. And so we have periods where it's super, super busy and periods where there might be a bit of a lull and where deadlines aren't as pressing. So yeah, it's good. It's a different type of busyness and it's a different type of intellectual challenge. It's just different.
So how much has being both a student and a teacher helped you with your current role?
I think, well, obviously being a teacher and then working in education policy, that experience in the classroom and in schools has helped me, I guess, with that empathetic understanding of teachers in Queensland and their day-to-day experiences and some of the challenges associated with the role and their experiences. But also being a student has helped me, I guess, because I'm still one of the newest people in the team. And so being used to having to learn and absorb information and remain really humble has been good because I work with a team of incredible professionals who are seriously smart and hardworking people. And I think that capacity to be a student has really served me in that I just absorb information from them. And we've got a really great collegial team in that you can just go up to somebody and say, hey, I don't get this problem, explain. And people have all the time in the world for you, which has been really good.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really good. Now, I imagine there'd be a really wide range of stakeholders to consider when looking at education policy. So how difficult is it to balance the needs of all those different parties?
I think with any policy area, you've got a whole range of stakeholders. People have different interests and perspectives and backgrounds that have informed those beliefs. But education is one of those interesting areas, I guess, where everybody has been to school or everybody has a kid in school or knows somebody with a kid in school. And so we all have a stake in it. And so it's one of those really interesting policy spaces. And that's quite enjoyable, but it also makes it really quite challenging. But I guess generally, and this is true to government in all sorts of areas, that's why consultation is always super important, and that we need to make sure consultation about various decisions happens in a really authentic and thorough way, because, and I think we really understand at the QCT where I work that the people who are closest to the problem are the ones that have the most insight into the problem. And so it's important in government to keep that in mind, I think.
So what's the most challenging part of your role?
We have a lot of, sometimes we've had some really, I guess, wicked problems, and we learn about wicked problems at uni, and those are those problems with, I guess, as you say, multiple stakeholders, lots of different interests, and each solution leads to another difficult problem, and so that's always interesting. But that's the kind of intellectual challenge that I really like.
So you've just taken up another challenge. You've enrolled last year in a Bachelor of Laws. Now, are you a glutton for punishment, or are you just a learnaholic?
Yeah, I think it's both. Bit of a learnaholic. I think I'm still working out what I want to be when I grow up, probably. And I think in my current role has involved a lot of reading, not a lot, but a little bit of reading legislation, but also reading different regulations and understanding words and language and having to interpret things. And that's what I really love to do. And so I was involved in some interesting work looking at different regulations and the consistencies and inconsistencies between them. And that is, I really love to do that. So that combined with my partner is a lawyer, and, learning about his experiences has been really interesting. And as soon as I started the law degree, I felt straight at home, and like this was what I really wanted to do. So yeah, I dipped my toe in and proceeded to jump in the pool. I guess. So yeah, I will continue.
Do you have plans to become a lawyer?
Look, I don't know yet. I'm so, it's going to take me so long to do it. I'm working full time and studying part time. So I think eventually I would like to be a lawyer or a barrister. I don't like to get too far ahead. Some people are really big on planning, but I'm really not. I just kind of go with the flow and take things as they come and take opportunities as they come. I think it would be great if I can combine my background in teaching and this job that I'm doing at the moment, this policy space, with the law space, and see where that takes me. You never know. But, jobs and things being created all the time. And that's the cool thing, particularly for school leavers today, is that the future is always changing, and you can find your niche.
Absolutely, because a lot of the jobs that are going to be in the future haven't actually been created
yet.
So
that's right.
I suppose
that's right.
all that experience, can only help. How long do you think it's going to take you to finish your degree?
Oh, I haven't done the maths yet.
Try not to think about it.
I try not to think about it. I started doing one subject. Last semester I did 2 subjects. I'm going to try and do 3 subjects this semester, but
wow,
you'll
have to hold me. Caseload.
hold me to that. Maybe talk to me 3 weeks into the semester and it might be a different story.
Yeah,
I might have dropped 2 subjects.
Isn't 3 subjects considered full-time?
Is it? Actually, I think it might be. I don't know. Maybe I need to, I don't know. I've invested in the textbooks now. I can't go back. Yeah, we'll
Oh,
see. Yeah. So no, it's good, and I'm really lucky in terms of my employer. They're really understanding of and encouraging of further study. So that's been good in terms of maybe saying, hey, can I work longer today so that I can leave a bit earlier for a lecture, on the next day, and that sort of thing. So I'm so fortunate in that regard.
yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you've had, a lot of really good supportive people surrounding you throughout your life, which is really,
Yeah, I've been really lucky. Yeah.
definitely. So what's next for Phoebe?
Oh, that's a hard one. Just keep plodding along. Keep working on the law degree and keep working at the QCT because it's a wonderful, wonderful job that I really enjoy. But I think also is I've now welcomed a dog into my life and a partner, and so I think it's also a time where I can calm down and learn how to balance that sort of more personal life and hanging out with my friends and hosting dinner parties and try to balance that with the pace of study and work that I've been kind of doing for the last few years. And so I want to be much better at that. And so I think that's going to be my focus.
So do you think that sort of comes with maturity, being able to sort of balance life with other things, like with your
Oh,
study?
definitely. And I think that's always been my problem, is taking things too seriously. And I've really made an effort this year in particular to not worry too much about grades and not worry about not feel ashamed of leaving work before other people. Because I think, especially when you're young and there's this pressure to be the best, or show people that you're working really hard, there's this pressure to think that you've just always got to do that when you actually don't. And people respect people who can balance things well, and I think employers really respect that balance too. And so it's good to show that you can juggle a lot of different things, and even if it means dropping the ball sometimes. Oh, that was a terrible answer. Scrap that.
No, I think that's a really good.
I
I actually think that's a really good life lesson, because a lot of people go into the workforce and they feel like they have to be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. When, a lot of employers now see that as they're not really performing. They're not really, being able to manage their time very well and things like that. So there's sort of always two sides to what goes on. And I
That's
think,
right. Yeah, and I've witnessed, for instance, a good example of this is that I witnessed my partner get his first job last year, and there was a lot of sort of competition between the graduates in that role, and people working ridiculously long hours, which we see a lot in the legal profession. But I guess because he was older, and this is his second career as well, he was really able to show that balance and say, hey, well, no, it's 5:30. I've actually got some other things to do, so I'm going to go. And there was no consequence. And so I think it's just taking that leap and just doing it. And but at the same time, I don't think I would change anything, because I think working really hard has paid off. I think maybe I could have had this realization a little bit earlier in my life.
hindsight is such a great thing, isn't it?
That's right. And you've just got to move through it to get the hindsight. So
that's exactly right. So
just
Phoebe,
enjoy the journey.
I'm so glad that we have people like you that are shaping the education of the future. Your ability to keep learning and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is really commendable and quite
Well, thank
inspirational.
you. Cheers.
But I've got one final question for you though, Phoebe. What would you do differently if only you knew?
I think it relates to that previous question, in that I think don't take yourself too seriously. There's that, and there's also reach out to people. People are people in the career that you want to move into, people that you look up to. People have time for other people, and that's what I've learned, is that just connect with somebody on LinkedIn and ask to have a coffee. I did it with somebody a few weeks ago and it really paid off. It was a great conversation. And so I think just don't be shy, reach out. And if they say no, well, you've lost absolutely nothing. And I think making those connections with other people early on is really something that pays off. And I think just don't be too scared. Just jump in, have a go. You've got nothing to lose.
Look, I couldn't agree more. I actually said to my son last night, who's
Mm,
just started his first year at university this year,
yeah.
to just be able to reach out and ask people for help and don't be scared, because I think a lot of young people are really fearful of making themselves
Mm,
vulnerable and saying that
mm.
they need help, where, people are more than willing to help you. So
Oh,
I think,
definitely.
yeah, that's such a
Definitely.
good thing
Yeah.
it's a great message to get out there. So I'm glad I'm
Yeah.
not the only.
Oh, definitely. And I think even if it's just to say, hey, can you explain more about what your job is? What I think is the most difficult thing for school leavers is that often you have no idea what a job actually entails. You can
Mhm.
read about a job, but you don't know what day to day looks like, and the types of challenges that are involved. So I think it's really so valuable to just reach out to somebody in the profession. You can stalk people on LinkedIn and whatever, and ask to have a coffee and say, can you actually just take me through your day and what you do? I think people are more than open to that. I know I would be if somebody asked me. So, yeah.
Well, look, you came on this podcast, and that's the
Yeah.
exact reason for this podcast. So thank you very much.
It's such a
So look,
great initiative that you're doing.
thank you. Now, look, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today, Phoebe. I've really learned a lot. So thank you very
No,
much.
my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Okay, so if you'd like to know more about Phoebe, feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn. She may stalk you anyway. And her full bio will be available on our website, ifonlyyouKnewpodcast.com.au. Thanks, Phoebe.
Thanks, Christy.
For more information about our guests or our show, visit ifonlyyouKnewpodcast.com.au.